Hello, and welcome back to Journal of the Body. This is what I'm calling season 2. I would also deem it my postpartum era because I am deep in the throes of a 6-month-old who is learning to crawl and trying to talk and standing up on things and walking. And so my life has slowly kind of digressed into chaos, which is wonderful. It's such a beautiful time. And, it took me a little bit to recoup. And I definitely won't say I feel like myself again because I'll never be her. I am a new woman. I am not maiden. I am a mother now. And so it has definitely reframed a lot of my thoughts and philosophies in life and in health, and it's just been really eye-opening. And so, I think back to a year, even 2 years ago, of like the things that I was really adamant about within, my personal practices to be healthy. Like my focuses have shifted. Some things for me have changed, and I am just really excited to share new insights and, share clarity that I've gotten with you guys. And yeah, I'm so excited to be back and, going to be trying to record regularly, record topics that are top of mind for a lot of you. And today I'm actually going to share with you guys about my HTMA test that I just completed postpartum. So I did it on November 2nd. We're looking at it now, just a week later. So I am going to go through why I did this test. First of all, what is an HTMA? It's a hair tissue mineral analysis test. It tells you a lot about your current mineral statuses. It also tells you a lot about your heavy metal statuses. And I think that it's an incredible tool for postpartum because we tend to be running on empty when it comes to our gas tanks and energy, and our thyroids are typically taking a toll. We're not getting sleep. Our hormones are a bit haywire, and it can take a really good amount of time to actually reset back to baseline. And it can be even more exacerbated, especially your mineral depletion, if you are, for example, breastfeeding or pumping. So I'm going to go through this test with you guys, give you some, backgrounds on kind of why I did it, things that I'm looking for, things to kind of look out for, especially if you're postpartum or if you're just, taking the test in general. You're interested in, completing something like this, and basically just give you the full rundown. So a few weeks ago, I was just not feeling 100%. I've been breastfeeding for a little over 6 months now. When I got back from Europe, I was like, I need to do this test. I am just not feeling 100%. Now, this is pretty much, I'd say, the most stories when it comes to mothers postpartum, especially you hit that 5-6 month mark, and there tends to be this gradual or sometimes sudden decline in the thyroid. And a lot of different things happen, a lot of this happens for a few different reasons, right? You're going on months of little to no sleep unless you have an outlier baby who is sleeping through the night. God bless you. And you also are experiencing new bouts of stress. Every time the baby cries, you may release, stress hormone. Depending on how regulated or unregulated your nervous system is, you can cycle through minerals faster. You will also cycle through minerals a lot faster if you're breastfeeding, and that is definitely the case for me. And not only that, I've tacked on things like traveling. We just got back from El Salvador, we were in Europe, we went to Peru. So needless to say, between baby, work-life balance, husband, travels, I have been feeling like I need a complete reset. And that is why I did this test, because they always say, test, don't guess. And I haven't really always been a believer of that, but now looking at my results and starting to incorporate some of the supplements that are going to help me rebalance my minerals and a lot of the, the statuses, the status in my body, I can honestly say that I now really do find it incredibly beneficial to test instead of guessing what is going on. And this is also a moment that I would like to say kind of in terms of like self-advocacy for your own health, where you can actually, you have the ability to go get these tests from a lab or from a company, a third-party company who will give you the results and the interpretation of these results. And you don't necessarily have to be working with healthcare providers to get this stuff. It's pretty incredible. So I'm going to link the mineral tests that you can do in my, like in the show notes. I used well, actually, there's a couple different brands I've used in the past, but I'll link the one that I use, Honed, and I'm just gonna go through and explain kind of what this mineral test looks like. So the first page, well, I guess I'll go off of my data. So there's nutrient minerals, which are gonna be iron, copper, manganese, zinc, chromium, selenium, phosphorus, and then you kind of move on to some other aspects. You look at your electrolyte minerals, so that's going to be calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. If you're talking about toxic metals, they're on a balance beam with minerals. So if you are very mineral depleted, chances are a lot of times you may see higher than normal levels of these toxic metals. There's additional, minerals like cobalt, nickel, and some of these other things. I don't really ever find those to be, super beneficial one way or another to like know. I mean, unless you have some very random one-off case that it's like off the charts. And then there's mineral ratios. So that's like calcium to magnesium, calcium to potassium, calcium, or zinc to copper, calcium to phosphorus. Like there's all these different mineral ratios. So I'm going to kind of walk you guys through what I saw postpartum, and I'm also going to kind of just give you guys the rundown of what I'm essentially going to do to help support my body and try to access like a sympathetic nervous system. Okay, let's start out with nutrient minerals to start. So I noticed on my scan that my selenium was pretty low. This is usually associated with stress, particularly stress on the thyroid. So this means that I am probably showing like downregulated thyroid symptoms. So I definitely need to incorporate more selenium into my diet. This is super common postpartum, and I kind of half expected to see it. I was taking this awesome Thyro Pro supplement that had selenium, zinc, I think also iodine in it, a couple other herbs as well. And that was helping me quite a bit. Like I would have noticeable differences in the day when I was taking those supplements. I ran out before I traveled and hadn't taken it regularly since. So kind of no surprise that my selenium levels are where they're at. And again, huge indication of the thyroid there. My phosphorus levels were normal. My zinc levels were actually really high. And what this means on a hair mineral analysis test actually means that I'm having excessive loss of zinc in the hair. So this can be, all sorts of things from immune system imbalances. Also, living in sunnier climates can typically indicate that, we need to use a lot more zinc. So things like Florida weather and Florida climate can really mean that people need to up their zinc. And that for me, for a while, I was kind of in denial that I needed more zinc. I am so prone to skin problems that zinc, I have noticed when I do take zinc, and I have not been incorporating it, but again, I am going to be reincorporating it. Started yesterday, already feeling noticeable differences. But when I incorporate zinc, my skin actually improves and heals. And I do not know why it has taken me so long to get this through my thick skull. But I have dealt with all sorts of things like imbalanced skin microbiomes, acne. It runs in my family. Everybody has been on Accutane but me. And so zinc has been a pretty serious indicator of what's going on in my body. So all in all, I've reincorporated zinc as a supplement, started yesterday. I will say this, and I don't know if this is because I'm cycling through zinc so fast, but when I do take a zinc supplement, I tend to notice nausea. So I always have to take it with food. That's a huge, indicator for me. I always have to take it with food. My copper levels were normal. My iron levels were low, but it's hard to tell what exactly this means on a in just a hair mineral analysis test. You really need to see like your serum blood levels to actually get a good scope of what's going on. Though I will say my iron being low during pregnancy and postpartum, or more specifically I should say postpartum, not uncommon, right? We've got tons of, if I'm breastfeeding, for example, tons of nutrients are going out, the window in efforts to create breast milk, tons of minerals, vitamins, etc. So we just need a lot more of everything. And I definitely haven't eaten as much red meat in the last month as I normally do. So we'll be incorporating that, and I may even consider finding some sort of iron supplement. I've never done iron supplements. I've always hesitated just because of Morley Robbins and a lot of the work that some of the people that I follow have done. But there are situations where it could make sense, and I have to do a little bit more research to see if this may be that. Copper and iron tend to be on balance beam. I like to say they're on balance beams with each other. Like they tend to be on a seesaw. So my copper level is optimal, so that's usually good. And you kind of actually want to see what the copper to zinc ratio is as well. Anyway, that's kind of another story. I'll get into that later. Let's talk about electrolyte minerals. Okay, so electrolyte minerals, like I said earlier, are the calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. First and foremost, I want to say that my magnesium was out of range. Pretty significantly. This means that I am probably burning through magnesium like crazy, right? So when you see like certain things on these mineral tests, when they say they're out of range, they're high, for example, it means that you're actually cycling through these minerals really rapidly, which means high amounts are actually being found in the hair. That's not actually a good thing. It's not like, oh, you have a lot of magnesium. It's like actually like, no, your magnesium level is high. This indicates it's being lost rapidly through the hair, and this causes deficiency symptoms. It's, again, magnesium really linked to irritability, poor sleep quality, feelings like overwhelm can be really, really associated. My calcium levels, I'm going to just let you guys know, my electrolyte minerals, with the exception of potassium, which was pretty much like close to the, it was pretty close to the optimal range. It was slightly low. My electrolyte minerals were all very out of range, which means that I'm burning through minerals quickly. And that is an indication of chronic stress. Calcium, again, high. So this kind of correlates to high levels of stress. I need to do another test in a couple of months to kind of see where I'm at and see if I've been able to regulate. So I'll do another test probably in 3 months, because there's kind of this toggle of, oh, this is super urgent, like I need to fix this. It's not really that. Like your serum blood levels are always going to kind of give a better snapshot of what's going on, but a hair mineral analysis test does give a lot of good information. So it's just good to kind of have in the back seat, in the back of your mind, to say, okay, my magnesium's out of range, I need to incorporate a magnesium supplement. My calcium's out of range, I may need to incorporate more, high quality dairy. My high sodium was interesting, which means I'm burning through sodium pretty quickly. High sodium, again, correlated to stress, usually indicates being in fight or flight, which definitely feels like that encompasses postpartum, where you hear baby cry, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do something. Or you wake up in the middle of the night because you have a cortisol spike. So again, really big need for adrenal support there, adrenal cocktails. So all in all, and I also have this crazy craving for salt. I put salt in a lot of things. Maybe that's a craving for iodine, which is really linked to selenium and the thyroid. So there's so much to unpack there. Okay, now let's talk about toxic metals. So the test that I did, it tests lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and aluminum. Those are kind of the core five that seem to be, the most prevalent. So my lead levels were slightly elevated, which is interesting because I have a feeling this has to do with the fact that I lived in New York City and there's a chance that I had lead pipes in my basically in our building. It was a very old building. There was this notice that was a potential, and that was really unfortunate. I got a water filter, but I don't know if it was optimal in terms of filtering lead. Anyway, so yeah, lead pipes potentially not ideal. There's a lot of different places that this can come from. It can come from ceramic dishware, paints, contaminated water, etc. So yeah, so it's just slightly elevated, not too bad. Mercury was pretty out of range. I was like, whoa. Had been eating a lot of fish throughout the course of my whole pregnancy, throughout these entire last few months. I'm wondering if that had something to do with it. So I definitely will need to actually detox here when it comes to, yeah, my mercury. I was kind of surprised. So I'll be choosing fish that are usually smaller on the food chain, that don't necessarily contain a lot of mercury. And yeah, I will test in 3 months and see where that's at. And then arsenic and cadmium were low, which was great because I eat a lot of rice and I kind of assumed that potentially my arsenic was going to be high, but no. Aluminum was also slightly elevated, almost out of range. Not ideal again, but it could have been from all sorts of stuffs, aluminum cans. I know it wasn't from my deodorants, aluminum foil, just different foods and things that, are contained, aluminum is kind of the packaging. So I am now going to be a lot more cognizant of that. Long story short, during postpartum, it's not really the ideal time to detox. It's not something you necessarily want to do until after you're done breastfeeding. Again, for a lot of different reasons. I really don't want any of that stuff exiting out into the breast milk if I were to go through and do a detox. So I'm going to hold off on that front until I've actually stopped breastfeeding. Now, what I can tell you is that the more that I balance my minerals, the better I am going to detox heavy metals. So one of the things that is really, really actually, I should say this. The one thing that you can do to detox metals, in my opinion, that doesn't necessarily have an effect on the breast milk is actually going to be doing sauna. So saunas create a very deep sweat. And a lot of times you're able to offload some of those toxic metals. And I think that that's a really important point. So long story short, I'm going to be doing a lot more sauna use in the coming weeks and months just to see if I can really get my levels down. And like I said, I'll test in another couple months here and just kind of see what's ultimately going on. So all in all, that's kind of the biggest snapshot of the main keys. Now let's actually get into mineral ratios. This is another interesting part of the hair mineral analysis test. So the mineral ratios that I got tested were calcium to magnesium, calcium to potassium, sodium to magnesium, sodium to potassium, zinc to copper, and calcium to phosphorus. Now, that sounds like a lot, right? It's kind of like, whoa, slow down there. But let's just kind of go through this and talk about what a few of these different things mean. So minerals work together in pairs, right? They're kind of on this balance, this toggle with each other. When both are out of balance, it typically, or even just one of the two, usually results in, different symptoms. So my calcium to magnesium range was pretty normal, honestly. It says it's still slightly elevated, but it was in the green still. So I'm not going to necessarily consider this too, drastic. My calcium to potassium was actually very, very, very elevated, which is associated with stress, poor sleep, cold hands, cold feet, lack of sweating, fatigue, dry skin, hair, or constipation. These are all classic symptoms of postpartum. So calcium to potassium ratio was super high. I would say that I need to definitely do a deeper dive on these minerals. Again, the stress, the poor sleep, this is just like literally my day to day at this point, and that's why I'm really trying to correct. The dry skin, same thing. There's a lot going on in the body. So, in terms of my calcium to potassium, I kind of need to figure out what essentially I need to do to get that back because it was way out of range. Like it's at the top there. So, my let's see here, my sodium to magnesium is low, which is a result of fatigue, decreased stamina, low blood sugar, and poor digestion. What I'll say about that is I definitely believe it has a lot to do with magnesium. So I'm going to be really, really harping on the magnesium to basically see if I can get that corrected. Same thing, sodium to potassium ratio is higher than optimal. So it's definitely indicating stressed state, potentially inflammation, poor sleep, anxiety, irritability. Sounds about right. That's definitely been some of the symptoms I've kind of had here or there. And let's see here, the last two are also out of range. Like I said, guys, like postpartum really does a number on you, and you can get really out of whack, and especially breastfeeding, your mineral ratios go all over the place. So zinc and copper is also elevated. This means hormone imbalance, thyroid, and typically skin problems. So again, really what that means for my zinc to copper ratio means that I need to incorporate a lot more zinc to kind of balance this whole thing out. Calcium to phosphorus was also in the high range, again indicating just feeling worn out and exhausted, not ideal, not fun. So definitely got some things to correct. So kind of just to recap here, what can you expect postpartum? You'll definitely expect some of these mineral ratios to be out of balance, especially when it comes to calcium, magnesium. And zinc to copper, same thing, again, kind of coincides with thyroid, skin problems, hormone imbalances. Selenium levels, that's a key indicator of thyroid issues if your selenium levels are off. And then again, toxic metals, not necessarily like an issue, quote unquote, postpartum. But I will say if you're having those mineral imbalances, heavy metals can build up more easily, more readily. Not ideal. So really hyper focusing more so on the minerals, and then my nutrient minerals. Again, personally, I was looking at zinc imbalances and iron imbalances, which is also very common postpartum. So I hope that this helps give like a snapshot of kind of how you read an HTMA test, how it helps you, because really what you want to do with your results is essentially formulate a game plan to come out on the other side feeling better, right? Taking the levels that are most out of range and saying, what can I do to, essentially fix this? So if my iron is low, again, doesn't necessarily mean everything from the HTMA test may need blood serum levels, but I'm going to take actionable steps to try to get my iron up. I'm going to incorporate more red meat and some more, foods that are, higher in iron. Same thing with zinc. I'm starting a zinc supplement. Like that's really, really important for me. I'm taking a zinc supplement with copper cofactors at the moment. And I'm incorporating, this is a brand I like. I just personally use it. It's called Organic Olivia's Thyro Pro. And like I said before, that one has a few herbs in it, like milk thistle, which actually helps my breast milk supply, but also it's got zinc and selenium and some of these really important factors. I'm also going to be incorporating a lot of different forms of magnesium, and hopefully this will actually get some of my ratios, my mineral ratios back in balance, because again, very, very quickly cycling through magnesium, not great, very common in most women, especially postpartum. It feels like a staple in all things. So I'm incorporating the BioOptimizer Sleep Breakthrough. I really like that one. It's a powder tastes really good too, that I have been using before bed. I also use like a blended magnesium with a couple different types of magnesium throughout the day. Started that a few days ago. I'm getting really regimented to just try to turn a corner here. The other thing I'll say about this, and some of these indicate blood sugar imbalances, which is also super common postpartum, and that's something I personally experienced. I was using Levels, the continuous glucose monitor, and there were a few days when I got terrible sleep that I was like, these are borderline pre-diabetic blood sugar spikes. And it's super common postpartum because you are up, you're down multiple times in the night, which really impacts blood sugar. You're having cortisol spikes at random times, baby's crying, this, maybe you didn't eat enough, that, you're breastfeeding, like your blood sugar can essentially go all over the place. And that is essentially, on some days, that's what I experienced. And some of these mineral indicate, some of these mineral statuses essentially can kind of indicate that I'm having, blood sugar regulation issues. And so when it comes to my blood sugar, I am definitely clothing all my carbs, which is what a lot of people say. And it means having carbs, but also with fats and proteins so that I don't have as crazy of blood sugar spikes. I'm prioritizing protein at every single meal. I eat protein first on my plate, and or I'll eat fibrous veggies first, and then I'll move to the fruits or the carbs or whatever. So I'm always trying to focus on, getting the protein and maybe the fats first, eating those first. That's just a simple blood sugar hack. The same thing with going on lots of different walks. That is also key. Going on walks after you've eaten really, really helps with the blood sugar spikes. I'm also taking a Vasitol. A Vasitol 30 minutes before meals seems to really help with blood sugar spikes. And so, again, those are just a couple of one-offs that I can kind of personally attest to when it comes to trying to rebalance all of my levels. The final thing I'll say is that in terms of my mineral statuses right now, there is this section that I got that's oxidizing status. So are you a mixed oxidizer? Are you fast oxidizer? Are you slow oxidizer? I got slow oxidizer, which is, again, not super ideal, but this is depending on the ratios of calcium to potassium and sodium to magnesium. And it indicates the balance of stress and catabolism in the body, right? Like, so the breakdown of what's going on in the body. And this associates with dry skin, decreased bowel movements, which I noticed that as soon as I started incorporating magnesium and zinc, I was having good bowel movements, consistent bowel movements first thing in the morning, which is kind of like the times that you actually look and want to have those bowel movements is usually in that first window of the morning. It kind of just tells things that your circadian rhythm is slightly balanced or it's balancing out. Cravings for sweets, tendencies towards blood sugar imbalances. Again, this is all kind of coming together and there was definitely a weakened stress response for myself, and this in turn leads to depletion of minerals and vitamins. The status is also commonly associated with aging, so postpartum is aging me slightly. So I am definitely looking to get myself back in check, back to a place where I feel good, and it's not all sunshines and rainbows. We go through periods in our health where we feel good. We go through periods where we don't feel good, and it is all a part of the journey. And it's kind of just like, hey, what can I do to correct this? What can I do to make myself feel better? And so all in all, you can take them at like the minerals tests and the metals tests for what it means. It's not the Bible. It's not the end all be all. It is just a great marker of some things that you can change essentially. And ultimately what this tells me is I have a lot of work to do on my central nervous system. This doesn't necessarily mean I can supplement my way out of these problems. It means that I need to do some deep work in my in my sympathetic nervous system and try to get to a parasympathetic state, which means a more relaxed, a rest and digest state rather than a flight or fight state. And I need to do a little bit more meditation, maybe incorporate a little bit more yoga, more walking. Again, the meditations, the mindfulness. I use this product called a Sensate. I actually really like it. It's a device. It's a vibrational therapy device. that kind of helps regulate your nervous system. I've noticed I go into super deep sleeps after I use it. So again, like I said, this is kind of the like cherry on the cake. Like, you can't out supplement a body that is in constant stress, and you've got to do work in your nervous system to then be able to utilize all of the minerals and all of the nutrients and all the vitamins, etc., that you're giving your body through the food. You need to be in a calmer state in order to utilize those properly. Otherwise, you're just going to be on this hamster wheel of cycling through minerals and being stressed constantly. So how do you regain that balance? I hope this helps. I also want to say that this is a really good test if you are in the postpartum phase or in the preconception phase, because minerals play exceptionally important roles in the preconception phase. They also play exceptional roles in the pregnancy phase. Your body is using these constantly to build up fertility, to build up the baby when the baby is, in utero. So again, minerals are definitely not something to ignore. They are kind of lay the foundational work for all of the processes and functions that are going on in your body. And I really hope that this helped. Thanks again for listening in today. If you've got any questions, send me a DM on Instagram. That's the best way to reach me. And send me over topics that you want to hear about, and we can talk about them. Bye. Bye.